Bonus hour. I was about to say hour number 3. Same thing. It is, right? This is what we do. After Seminole headlines these days, the extra hour is in play. We wanted the symmetry of 3 hours every day, 5 days a week, when possible. So that's what we're doing. And usually in this hour, I switch it up. We just spent 2 hours talking certainly about Florida State and its many woes, and we went through it on Seminole headlines. If you missed any of that, by the way, and you're just tuning in, always go back to find it on the pod. You can also find it on Warchant TV. You go back, catch up on that. We always appreciate you doing that. Forgive the video quality if you're on Warchant TV on YouTube right now. My camera, my Razer Kaio, if you will, for whatever reason has gone kerplunk. It's over. I don't know what's going on with that. So we're just using the camera on the computer. That said, and away we go. This hour, there might be some FSU, but a lot of this is kind of reflecting on what we just saw in football and in baseball, in the NFL and Major League. By the way, in football, really quickly, over the years, it's certainly understood that this is a show that the central theme is Florida State. That's a given. And in addition to the central theme being Florida State, college football is a good percentage of what we do here. So 60 to 70%, pretty much, maybe even more than that. And then in addition to that, I think there's some sort of spinoffs of all of that are more college related, but we've always, back in the days of the 3-hour show, which was 24 of the 26 years or so that I've been on the air, had time for the NFL, had time for other sports topics as well. But I was always mindful that we needed to return to the central theme because, frankly, for many years, it just seemed that college football was not only what you were more interested in and I was more interested in, but was better. And I get it. I mean, college sports and pro sports in general are two very different things. Sure, the games being played are similar, but the atmosphere, just the collegial nature, right? The connections you feel to a university, as opposed to, as Jerry Seinfeld once said, you're rooting for laundry when you're rooting for NFL teams, because oftentimes those or professional teams in general, because those, you don't have the same connection to a pro team in that you didn't go to that school. There is no school, right? Now you may be from that city, but you never really feel like a pro sports franchise cares about you in the same way that, say, colleges do, and cares about your thoughts on a program or whatever it might be. But, one thing that the NFL has had going for it and why it's emerged as the most popular sport in all the land by far is on display currently. And that is that there is a lot more uncertainty in the NFL than there is college football. And those that are absolutely longing for change and the hope that their seasons can be much better than the ones previous. So, for example, if you're a fan of a franchise that won 3 games last year, you actually have specific examples of those types of franchises within 2 years being a playoff team, a division winner. Hell, in extreme cases, in some outliers, you have cases where teams go from last to first. We get different teams. They've expanded the playoffs now, but 4 new teams are going to make it into the NFL playoffs this year than last. That's what we've seen on average, and that gives everybody hope. We often say hope springs eternal when you go to spring training baseball games, right? You can know that you're rooting through it for a team whose payroll is disparate by 10 times that of the top payroll. So, for example, I'm speaking of my Pirates. I know that Robert Nutting, the owner of the Pirates, is never going to spend akin to the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Mets or the Dodgers. And if we're really being fair in this exercise, every other team in Major League Baseball. But yet I can fall victim to the allure, to the nostalgia of the game, and I can go to a spring training game down in Bradenton and watch the Pirates play, and somewhere in the midst of that game, I can convince myself that if everything goes right and they win a bunch of one-run games, the Pirates will somehow be able to compete just like everybody else. All right, back to my point. In the NFL, it actually happens. In the NFL, it happens a lot. In the NFL, we have what we have like right now. The largest NFL favorite of the week has lost outright in each of the first 3 weeks. If you go into a college football weekend and there you try to find the 3 biggest favorites in college football, the classic hell to the nah team of the week, you might go years. In fact, you will, because we did it. We did it on this show. We did the hell to the nah team of the week. We would find the largest or pretty close to the largest underdog of the entire weekend. And we would talk about how it was that that team had no chance, that ass kicking was imminent, and that in all likelihood, you were only mesmerized by the idea that the team that is 50-point underdog, 55-point underdog, 40-point underdog, you're only mesmerized by whether or not they'll keep it to within that spread if you bet on it, or if the favorite, in fact, will do even more damage and win 70-0, 70-7, or something along those lines. And every once in a great while, and we've had it happen, every once in a great while, like as in once in 5 years, some magnificently formidable underdog will be, 37-point dog and win the game. And yet, in the first 3 weeks, the biggest favorite on any given NFL Sunday has fallen. New England won in week 1 over a 7.5-point favorite on the road, Cincinnati. Week 2, Baltimore was an 8.5-point favorite against the Las Vegas Raiders. They lost. And in week 3, it happened last night. Cincinnati was a 7.5-point favorite against Washington, and they lost. And while I'm on the subject of last night in Cincinnati and Washington, it's pretty amazing to think what we're already seeing from Jaden Daniels. And I'm going to get to you in a second, Jacksonville. But if you think about this for a second, I don't want to make sweeping conclusions, but it appears in the modern NFL with rookie quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, we get an awful lot of, oh, okay, both good and bad. The, ooh, okay can apply to, Bryce Young. Doesn't look like he's seen it. Doesn't look like he's physically ready. Doesn't look like he's emotionally stable, for lack of a better term. I'm talking from football standpoint. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. And immediately people will say, well, look, Carolina is a dysfunctional organization. Carolina is awful. Fair. Ownership has been awful. Carolina Panthers don't give the fans in Charlotte very much hope. That said, Andy Dalton took the personnel that was obviously besmirched all of last year and into this year. That was the argument, right? Bryce Young has no chance to succeed. Ownership's terrible. Coach is terrible. Personnel is terrible. All right. Well, new coach came in this year. Didn't take him long to bench Bryce Young. Andy Dalton steps in with that same personnel, and they boat race last week and go nuts. And he throws for 300-plus yards. What are you going to do if you're the head coach of that team, first-year head coach now, when you just watched that? At any point, does Bryce Young have a chance to play again? You probably have to trade him. You probably are now about to trade him. Back to Jaden Daniels, who goes nuts last night and looks like the game is slow. Looks like the game is easy for him. Looks like the game. And remember, that's a desperate Cincinnati team. We just saw a situation in which a bunch of 0-2 teams won. 6 0-2 teams won. That's to my larger point. I'll circle back. Jaden Daniels beat a desperate Cincinnati team last night on the road, and he did it with relative ease. It looked easy for him. Meanwhile, the larger point about why the NFL can sometimes rise up and even here and within my own mind be the better product is because 6 0-2 teams won the biggest underdog has defeated the largest favorite in each of the last 3 weeks. It simply never happens in college football. That kind of result never plays out in college football. In fact, go back to all of our expectations as we came into this season, and we all have thoughts on what a team is going to be or not be. There are some certainties. Patrick Mahomes is going to be very good. He's the best quarterback in football, and he's going to make a lot of plays. Although we are watching a crazy trend right now where quarterbacks across this league appear to be, save for the exception like last night with Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels, kind of broken in the sense that nobody's throwing the ball down the field anymore. The average yards traveled per completion in the NFL right now has been cut in half in the last 3 years. Defenses have taken big plays away by and large, and so we're seeing a lot of dinking and dunking, which does detract overall from the product, in my opinion. Anyhow, I digress. But you get back to this and you begin to think, okay, there were some things we knew. We knew Josh Allen was really good. I think he's the second best quarterback in football, and I've thought highly of Josh Allen for some time now. And, of course, he has put his team in a position to win it. They only choked it away on the road against Kansas City a couple of years ago where Josh Allen actually pretty much outdueled Patrick Mahomes. But, again, it's fascinating to think of the teams we thought we knew and the players we thought we knew coming into the season. Some worked out, but get this. Look at the 3-0 teams. A rookie head coach in Seattle is 3-0. Minnesota right now, looking at the numbers and looking at the wins. Think about what they did in roughing up the 49ers. Think about what they did in roughing up the Houston Texans, making C.J. Stroud, who hadn't looked bad since basically week 3 of last year. He's been good ever since. He had one of his worst games as a pro, albeit it's an early career game, but that was stunning. Minnesota leads the league in sacks. They're doing so many things well on offense, and, oh, by the way, that too is the big story at quarterback. So here we go. They're 3-0, and also the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0. I don't think any of us were making these arguments for these teams. Now to the games again last night. A couple cool things stand out to me. Damar Hamlin, first ever interception. I will say this about that. Imagine in any walk of life, well, it's especially true, I think, if you are an athlete, all right? So if you are somebody who peaks or competes, I should say, physically at the top of whatever it is you are endeavoring to do. So if you are a long distance runner, if you are a hockey player, if you are a competitive weightlifter, if you are anything in which you're at the top of your game, a PGA Tour player, right? It could be anybody, right? From the most strenuous to PGA Tour golf, whatever it might be, or ping pong. Table tennis, as it were. I tend to bet that every now and again these days. And you died doing it. Imagine you died doing the thing that you've trained for all your life. You died. You are a world-class marathon runner, and you're in the midst of running a marathon, and you collapsed and you died. And they brought you back to life. They saved your life. Right there, they rushed you to the hospital. There were people there monitoring the obviously the marathon, and they were able to get immediate medical attention to you. They whisked you away to the hospital. There were tons of obviously witnesses to this horrific moment in time, and they brought you back, and your eyes open, and you're in the hospital, and you don't know what happened, and somebody says, you died. You died on mile 14. You were running along, and all of a sudden, you collapsed, and you weren't moving. The doctors that reached you in that moment were frantically scrambling to save your life. Same with, say, you're a power lifter. You know, you're deadlifting some magnificent amount of weight, and in the midst of it, you drop it, you fall to the ground, you're not breathing, your heart has stopped. They rush in and save your life. You wake up in the hospital, and they let you know you died. How many people would continue as they come back from this horrific event beyond anything we can understand, those of us that haven't died, right? And then said to ourselves, well, obviously, I'd like to have a normal life. I'd like to get back and enjoy my life. Most people that you've ever read about or seen interviewed who have died, I happen to know somebody who is no longer with us, by the way, but who died on multiple occasions because of a heart condition. Now, when I talk to people that have died and come back from it, they have a profound appreciation for life. Stands to reason, right? Makes a lot of sense. Many of them just sought to be able to enjoy this life and the people they loved in it more than anything else in the world. That's what they wanted to do, right? They wanted to, there was a sense that maybe they wouldn't be here as long as they once thought, having now faced death, having now been through death, knowing that there's something wrong in their body, something that has caused this problem with their heart, something that led to, let's say, you're a person who's recovered from a massive stroke and you died and you fought all the way back to have some sense of normalcy. You know that there's an appreciation of what was almost lost, an appreciation of what you had to get through and go through to get back to some sense of normalcy. But also, I think there is an understanding that maybe this is going to be a little bit more short-lived than you had originally thought. Why am I bringing up these heavy conversational pieces, right? Why am I talking about these things in life? Because Damar Hamlin got his first interception and in a game that was a blowout. And then you think to yourself about what that had to have meant. That dude died in front of all of us watching that game. And we've watched him fight to come back. And really, probably, we're a little nervous about it. Didn't necessarily like the idea. And I don't know Damar Hamlin. I've never met the man, but having watched that and seen that play out, I remember when I read that he was going to attempt to come back, that he was going to attempt to make the roster, that he was going to attempt to still be a part of professional football. And I don't know, I can't think of too many things more physically damaging and brutal to one's body than playing professional football. You know, it'd be one thing to come back from having died doing what you love athletically, and you are a golfer and you are a table tennis superstar, but professional football, and he did it. He did it. And at first he came back and it was special teams, just special teams. And then he ends up playing a role in that secondary, and now he has an interception. And the thought of ever playing football again is one thing. The thought of somehow being able to achieve that and then reach a point where you're on the field and intercepting passes on a Monday Night Football game is a whole nother thing. But I go back to that first part of it. How many of us would have ever sought to go back and do anything that we died doing? Let that simmer for a second. That's freaking amazing. As for the game, Josh Allen completed passes to 10 different players. By the way, last year, Josh Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns, and he never gets hurt. All these other guys that scramble about and stuff get hurt. He never gets hurt. Anyhow, think about the stories of last night's quarterbacks and how different they are. You know, Josh Allen, nobody wanted coming out of high school. Famously, we've seen the commercials now. I think it's Nike. You know, or Gatorade or something. He's sending around tapes to any college that would take the tape and bother to spend some time looking at him. And he ends up at freaking little old Wyoming. And he first comes into the league and he's fairly inaccurate. He's more of a physical, freak, right? Like, who's that big at 250 pounds running around like he did? But, you got to be able to throw the ball accurately more often than not. And that was something we were going to question. Well, look what he is now. He's only behind Mahomes, really. Really, I mean, if you're being honest with yourself. And then there's Trevor Lawrence. And this isn't meant to just knock Trevor Lawrence. But honestly, think about that situation with Trevor Lawrence, who looks like he's very much regressing, is increasingly looking like, a quarterback who's broken. And they're screwed in Jacksonville because they just now gave him the money. They just now went all in. And look at this. One has to believe that Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars are now done on this season, and you wonder how that will look. By the way, they were one of the desperate teams that needed to get a win, and that's the performance. That ass beaten is what we end up getting. Who gives up 5 touchdowns in the first 5 possessions of the game in a must-win situation? That's Jacksonville. Then you go over to where we are with Jaden Daniels. I know Joe Burrow threw for 300-plus yards, and Cincinnati scored 33 points, and they were desperate and needed to win and didn't get it done, and the defense let them down. But Jaden Daniels made it look easy. And folks in Washington right about now have to be feeling sky high about where they're at and what's going to happen. Because what we know about the modern NFL is that the quarterbacks are younger as starters than they've ever been in the history of the league. It used to be you waited. It used to be that was standard. You came in, you were going to have to wait. There's still a debate, it's league-wide, about whether or not you should hold off on starting a young quarterback on what is likely a broken team that they were drafted to for obvious reasons, right? Everything else around you is crappy. How is it that you can be expected in year one to rectify this situation? Seems you have a couple of good examples of guys who at least waited a year or two and then emerged after the team maybe went out and got a left tackle, maybe went out and got a defensive end, maybe went out and got some pieces to the puzzle that are going to help solve the riddle, right? But there are still other cases where you look and say, well, I don't know. I mean, they started so-and-so in year one and it really worked out. See CJ Stroud. Broken franchise, guy comes in, boom, just like that. Are we seeing it with Jaden Daniels right now? Only time will tell, but it looks an awful lot like a guy who seems to have hit the ground running. Pretty amazing. So at this point, going to be fascinating. The league itself is fascinating. The biggest underdogs have won every week, and a bunch of teams that we didn't think would be 3-0 are 3-0. And, if you want more numbers, here's this. There are only, we talk about the Circa Survivor pool out in Vegas, where millions are at stake. If you were in a Survivor pool here locally, you're probably out of it. Most people are at this point, given the fact that the biggest favorites in the NFL have lost every weekend since the season started. If you're still around now, you're a lucky, lucky man. You stumbled into the right scenario. But here is the Circa Survivor numbers. There are just 642 entries left in Circa Survivor from the original field, which was that of 14,266. So just over 4% of the people that entered Circa Survivor are left. And we've played 3 weeks of NFL football. Grand opening, grand closing. It's Jeff Cameron, Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
We all know that home-cooked meals are so much better for you, but you don't always have the time to pull it off, especially in football season. But with HelloFresh handling all of the meal planning, the shopping, and most of the prep, it's easier than ever to get dinner on the table. Plans change and life gets busy. That's why HelloFresh lets you easily customize your delivery from week to week. You could tailor everything to your schedule by adjusting your delivery date or skip a week if you're not able to cook at home or you're just going to be on the road and traveling. Easily customize your meals with protein or veggie swaps as well. And don't forget, you can check out HelloFresh Market for more delicious add-on items if you want to mix it up and jazz it up for your weekly deliveries. Football season is absolutely nuts from a workflow standpoint. This is where simplicity really can come in handy. It saves you time because every minute counts in football season. This is where HelloFresh has saved me time. HelloFresh sending things directly to my door, minimal prep, cooking fresh ingredients, things that are good for my nutrition. It takes stress off my plate and puts healthy food on my plate. That's why I love HelloFresh. For free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com/freewarchant. 1 free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/freewarchant. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Elsewhere, the Pac-12 still adding teams, and UNLV is trying to figure out where they're going to end up. Doesn't it seem like to you guys that you'd want to be in Vegas right about now? Because it continues to expand everywhere else. They have an NFL team. They've got a hockey team that's actually won the Stanley Cup. The whole NBA and all the conversations that are going on. Obviously, the Las Vegas Raiders in that stadium. It's now widely accepted that Las Vegas is a place that is going to do business and have lots of professional success. It's growing ever more. You have the old Vegas Strip and the new Vegas Strip and all the money pouring into that. I would think UNLV would be one of those teams you'd want to go get. The only official moves announced so far out of the Pac-12, which we now know, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, joining Oregon State and Washington State for 2026. 2 more members are needed by 2026 for the Pac-12 to retain its FBS status at this point. We had the report that Utah State is accepting the bid too, so they're in there. Another team leaving the Mountain West. The American Athletic Conference flexed their muscles yesterday. Memphis, South Florida, Tom and I talked about this. Memphis, South Florida, Tulane, and UTSA came out Monday evening saying, no, we're staying in the AAC. Those reports are false out of the Pac-12. Those schools were being targeted by the Pac-12 was the thought. There were a lot of articles written about that yesterday. And they said, no, we're staying. The conference later on, the AAC that is, posted that all 15 members had committed to stick around. Now, the Mountain West, meanwhile, as we talk about musical chairs in college football and the landscape of realignment, and, we know in an ancillary way and sometimes in a direct way that the shifting tides in conference football or college football realignment, you see it in the Pac-12, which is seeking to again, still be a power conference, can directly or indirectly affect teams that you do care about. Like, you may not care about Utah State leaving the Mountain West, and the Mountain West is getting pilfered right now. And you may not care that San Diego State and Fresno State, and who else did I say? Oh, Boise State and Colorado State have all announced that they're joining the Pac-12. You may not feel like that affects you, but in some weird way, in this big scheme of realignment, it could absolutely affect a Florida State or a Clemson or a North Carolina or a Miami, and we'll see. It could affect what Fox does. It could affect what ESPN does. It could affect what any number of bidders will do moving forward for sort of whether it's a Amazon or a Netflix or an Apple or whatever it might be. The Mountain West was obviously hoping to thwart more departures to the Pac-12. They were trying to get a written commitment from existing members to remain in the conference. Utah State wrote out UNLV is considered to be the top expansion target for the Pac-12. By the way, of all the teams that we've mentioned, Utah State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, all the states that we've mentioned, UNLV is the one. That's who the Pac-12 needs to get. They need to get UNLV. They've now got Utah State, great. San Diego State, great, whatever. UNLV is what you need to get. According to Action Network, Air Force has been linked to the Pac-12 in addition to the AAC. Gonzaga, by the way, isn't joining the Pac-12 yet. There was some confusion. By the way, Gonzaga doesn't have a football team. So I'm not real sure why you'd even bother to do something like that. The conference realignment ultimately is something that we all pay close attention to for obvious reasons. But if you think about it this way, it could have an impact on the 12-team college football playoff. As currently constructed, the top 5 ranked conference champions in the country receive automatic bids to the playoff. The Pac-12, the Mountain West, and the AAC are fighting for supremacy amongst the group of 6. And all likely envision a scenario where their conference champion would annually receive that final automatic postseason bid. Unlikely in most years, another non-Power 4 school, conference champion or not, could make it to the college football playoff if it were ranked high enough. The college football playoff has not released its first official 2024 rankings, as we know. Boise State is currently the highest ranked non-Power 4 team in the AP poll. They sit at number 25. So pay attention to this stuff. It's fascinating. It's the kind of thing that, raises my antennas as we continue to hear about the rumors and speculation of what ESPN's going to do, what Florida State will do, the lawsuit, Clemson, Miami, Fox, what will they do? All of this musical chair game is something to know that in fact, it changes quickly. It all changes very, very quickly. And it is funny to watch and to read the articles written about what these teams are doing. I get it. It's a much bigger and more high profile story when Florida State makes noise in the system, when Florida State sues the ACC or files suit against the ACC, when Clemson does the same. These illicit hot takes from those that cover college football across the land. What it's really done is, more often than not, elicited vitriol, anger beyond reason, almost personal, attacks that seem to ignore the obvious situations that are parallels to what Florida State and other schools are attempting to do. I assure you, you're not today going to read about these Benedict Arnolds that are Colorado State and Fresno State and San Diego State. You're not going to hear about the evil Pac-12 going out and pilfering the other conferences. Just because they lost in this grand sweepstake doesn't mean they have to go and ruin all these other little conferences that are just fighting to survive. Oh, you're not going to read that article. You're not going to hear about how it is that Oregon State and Washington State were the last ones standing, and they should know what it's like to watch a conference ruin. They've seen their own ruined, and how dare they and others and the commissioner of the Pac-12 go out and steal these teams. You're not going to hear about any of that. And everybody involved, the Pac-12 commissioner, the Pac-12, the remaining schools in the Pac-12, the new members of the Pac-12, the members of the AAC, the American Athletic Conference for that matter, all of them, the Mountain West, everybody's just doing whatever they can to fight and survive. Everybody is just hoping to hang on for dear life. Everybody is trying to position themselves to have a dog in the fight, to make some money, to compete, to be able to field teams and programs that have a chance in hell at making the university money, surviving on the field of play, and keeping their university moving forward. That's all they're attempting to do, and that's what anybody and everybody does now, because the sanctity of all this was long ago bastardized. I don't care what year you want to look at it. I don't care when you decide that the evil had penetrated college athletics. You could probably arbitrarily pick a year and give an example, but I could probably most of the time go back further. But since the seismic shifts occurred, and I don't know if you want to say that was the ACC raiding the Big East. I don't know if you want to say that was the SEC deciding, all right, Big 12, we're going to go ahead and take you out back and put a bullet in your head because we're going to take Texas and Oklahoma. Or fast forward, if you will, and say, okay, well, the SEC aggressively protected itself, went out and got schools that were like-minded, and then maybe it's the Pac-12 that said they were never going to do this, and then they went, or the Big Ten said they were never going to do this, and then they went and took Southern Cal and UCLA and Oregon and Washington. I don't care where you start, but everybody, and that includes Florida State, at some point figured it out. Jim Phillips, last amongst them, figured out that at the end of the day, you have to fight for survival and position yourself to make the money. Two, as I like to say on a pretty consistent basis, eat from the money trough and compete at whatever level you threw your hat in ages ago. Really quickly, big baseball series get underway starting tonight. We'll do probables in a minute, but I'll go through and give you where we're at. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Wrapping it up, bonus hour, JCS. Appreciate you. By the way, big series begin all over baseball. We use sports as a distraction a lot of times, right? And we could use one this week as we're in the midst of, if you're in the state of Florida, kind of getting, more steadily nervous about what's coming down the pike with this storm. Wringing of the hands, if you will. We'll keep you updated as far as content goes. I know we're doing another Coach Speak this week. It'll happen, I think, tonight with me, Ira, and Corey getting together. So look for on Warchant TV for that. JCS tomorrow, still scheduled to go as planned. So Tom and I will be right back here on a Balls McWednesday, although it could be a hand-wringing Balls McWednesday, and it might also be a recorded Balls McWednesday. We're not sure yet. It really does depend on the storm. I wish all of you the best. I'm not a fatalist. I'm not an exaggerator when it comes to things like this. I'm not an alarmist and somebody who freaks out, but there seems to be plenty of unknown about this and potentially real problems with this storm in terms of the size and the strength of it and the possibility that it disrupts, obviously, lives first and foremost, but schedules certainly. You're seeing it in Leon County right now where already JV football has been moved up. That game is being played. If your kids play JV football, or if your daughters cheerlead or are part of the band or whatever it might be for football, if your kids just want to go watch the games, those games are tonight. They're making a decision about the varsity games. Leon plays Lincoln this week. And there are some big games out there that may get moved to tomorrow and or Saturday. We're not real sure yet. So we'll keep you up to date with all of that as we find out, but you guys will get those notices as well. Just wanted to give you updates as far as scheduling goes. As of right now, we plan on being here, but baseball in the interim can serve as a major distraction. And I would point out, for example, as it pertains to baseball, the Phillies won the NL East last night. Oh, by the way, did you know that's the first time since 2011? Seattle is a game and a half back after their win, beating Houston, who could have clinched last night. Seattle's a game and a half back behind the Royals and Tigers, and I think a separation as well as the tiebreaker with the Twins. So Seattle, it seems to me, while perilously close, are still probably a team that has to almost win every game they play this week because they don't win any of the tiebreakers at this time. But being a game and a half back with the Royals and Tigers, it's kind of fun what we're getting in baseball right now. The D-backs lose and are technically the 6th seed. The Braves have 2 ways to make the playoffs. They could take out the Mets in the series that begins tonight and surpass them, or the D-backs. And by the way, the Braves own the tiebreaker with the D-backs. So the D-backs have to be kind of careful. We get the Orioles and the Yankees tonight. I mentioned aforementioned Braves and Mets tonight. By the way, don't sleep on the fact that the Padres and the Dodgers play 3. The Padres are 3 back, but oddly, they do also own the tiebreaker. So, stranger things have happened. If they can sweep, you might get a little something right there. Before I get to probables, let me first say to you that you can save a bunch of money by using the promo code WARCHANT. That's right. Go to manscaped.com, manscaped.com, code WARCHANT for 20% off and free shipping. That ain't nothing. That's not nothing, free shipping. And listen, guys, we kind of chuckle our way, some people do, through the Manscaped reads, and depending on how forward you want to be, how aggressive you want to be as a host when you're promoting Manscaped and the 20% off that you could get from Warchant, you could get very graphic. You could get into the details. You don't want those details necessarily. What you want to know is this is just self-care, guys. This is self-care, and what a huge industry that is. But it's not wrong. We do things better these days, right? You got the lotions for your faces that protect you from getting skin cancer. Nothing wrong with that. How about lotion for the boys? It's hot out there. It's awfully hot out there. You go on these long dog walks. I go on a 4-mile walk every night with my dogs. Let me tell you something. The boys could use the lotion. They could use the lotion. And all of us are looking to protect ourselves from nose hair. Well, nobody wants nose hair. Get rid of that nose hair. Get rid of the ear hair, which, by the way, just as an aside, I love all of the accoutrements that come from Manscaped. You get the various lotions, and you get the trimmers, and you get the things that help the things and all that, right? But anything that's going to help me keep my ear hair in order. Nose hair too, but ear hair in order. I'm 53 years old, guys. You know the deal. Ear hair somehow grows faster than any hair known on the planet Earth. It's a true story. It's factual. It's science. It's accurate. You can't have that. You trim an ear hair on a Monday, Tuesday night, it's out of control. Not with Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com, code WARCHANT, 20% off, free shipping. Let's get to it. Probables. Rays, Tigers. Matters to the Tigers. You know, in theory, if the Rays were to win out, and by the way, they're 500 currently at 78, you know, the Rays could end up winning 84 games before this week is out. They probably won't make the playoffs, even if they do. But that's pretty crazy, right? We've kind of thrown them as an afterthought for most of the season. They're 500. They could finish over 500 with 84 wins, and they weren't really that very good this year. Ryan Peapot is the starter for the Rays. Tariq Skubal for the Tigers. Brewers, Pirates, Tobias Myers, Bailey Falter will go for the Buccos. I do envy, that's not one of those games because the Brewers are obviously where they're at, but you can find games on the schedule tonight, for example, that aren't that, like, that nobody has anything. Like the Angels and the White Sox play tonight. The White Sox have 120 losses. 120. They can surpass the 62 Mets. That said, I bet that's a fun game to play in if you're the Angels or the White Sox. If you're the road team, your players are pretty close to entering into stadiums late in the season in which they bring their golf clubs with them and their tickets to a Caribbean island alongside said golf clubs, right? Cubs, Phillies, Justin Steele, Tanner Banks, Reds, Guardians, Jacob Junis, Tanner Beebe or Bibby, Cole Reagans, Tallahassee's own goes for the Royals. Royals got to get it together. They're 5-13. They've been terrible lately. Hang in there, boys. Nationals will throw Mitchell Parker. Orioles, Yankees tonight. Oh, buddy. Dean Creamer, Clark Schmidt for the Yankees. Red Sox, Blue Jays, Brian Bello, Bowden Francis, Mets, Braves. There you go, Tommy. Luis Severino, Spencer Schwellenbach. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Marlins, Twins, Ryan Weathers, Bailey Ober. Angels, White Sox, aforementioned. Jack, got to be careful. Kokonowicz? Jonathan Cannon goes for the White Sox. Mariners, Astros, Logan Gilbert, Framber Valdez. Cardinals, Rockies, Michael McGreevy, Ryan Feltner. Rangers, Angels, Nathan Eovaldi, Mitch Spence. Giants, D-backs, Logan Webb, Brennan Fat. Padres, Dodgers, Michael King, Landon Knack. And that is a look at those that shall reside on the bump in the remaining 2 minutes. I'll just say this. There are a lot of teams that yesterday watched Jaden Daniels' performance, as we talked about on the show earlier, and they thought to themselves, well, my goodness gracious, it appears that they may have gotten it right. Yes, it does. Can you imagine the pressure that Caleb Williams is feeling right about now? Can you imagine the pressure that the rest of the NFC East is feeling right about now? Like the Cowboys' forever pseudo-open window that doesn't appear to any longer be open after 2 devastating losses, in which they cannot stop the run to save their life. And now you watch a Jaden Daniels emerging to go along with the Eagles that are already pretty good. Cowboys window may be slamming shut. Rookie quarterbacks are going, ooh, I don't know that I'm anything close to Jaden Daniels, who once again, folks, set the record last night for highest completion percentage by a rookie in any game that they started in their rookie season ever. 21 of 23. He also rushed for a touchdown. I want to note that yours truly may have mentioned at the start of the year, you guys remember this, that I put a little pretty penny on Jaden Daniels to win Rookie of the Year. I'm going to win that bet. He's really effing good. And poor Bears fans have to be thinking, we got the wrong guy again, didn't we? We got the wrong effing guy again, didn't we? Maybe, maybe not. Don't look at it that way. Caleb could end up being pretty good. He certainly doesn't look like Jaden Daniels through 3 games, but it's 3 games. It's 3 games. Who knows? Maybe your guy's going to take a little bit longer. That's all it is. All right, folks, fun with the bonus hour. Appreciate you very much. We'll be back with another JCS tomorrow. As always, don't forget, subscribe to warchant.com. Get the latest. We'll see. Florida State, SMU, plenty to talk about as we build up to that as well. Until tomorrow, peace.